Well, I went out ahead of this, the curve, before even the vote happened, as soon as this situation was apparent and clear that we needed to do a bailout. Warren Buffett puts $5 billion in. There's just not enough. It didn't change the dynamic. The only one large enough to bail out the country was, unfortunately, the taxpayers. But I even go a step further, is how do we get here? How do we make sure this never happens again?
So you would have voted for it?
Oh, absolutely. We had no choice. I was saddened by the pork-laden, fluff-mongering, Washington as usual situation that came about throughout this bill. They couldn't even, in this situation where there's such an economic crisis, they couldn't hold themselves back from just focusing strictly on supporting the credit market to create a basis to, the sellers to now have a buyer to set the price to the marketplace. They had to add on all the extra cookies in this situation and once again put the American people and the taxpayer behind the eight ball. Now, my biggest problem is this. When you have people who go, like my opponent, who's collected $801,000 from the very people they're supposed to oversee, I'm sorry, regulating people that are giving you the capital to get your message out, to get reelected, are you really going to hold them accountable? The American people are paying the price right now for a do-nothing Washington. This has been a bipartisan issue, but at the fundamentals of the crux of everything that we're looking at today is Fannie and Freddie. Fannie and Freddie, who supported my opponent, Fannie and Freddie sat out there and gave loans to people who couldn't afford loans. Now, why are we waiting till things are a problem before we react? It's because we have the wrong people in Washington. When we have an energy crisis, it's because they don't have new refineries. They don't talk about drilling when they're not preemptive. They're shocked that China uses up fossil fuels, but yet they get up and stamp their feet about China taking and growing their manufacturing. It's not going to take resources. They wait till it's a problem. This economic crisis fundamentally started by letting people not have the kind of oversight that we needed to have during the time. And I agree with my opponent. Results should matter. So if we look at 4 years of when you're there, I don't care whatever you say you've done, you haven't done the right things. And if you believe you've made a vote isn't good enough. And when I played professional hockey, they used to say, just showing up on the ice isn't enough. You had to execute. And right now what we need is people who are going to execute. And the last piece of this is, as Washington marches in our different CEOs and tries to divert the attention of their own mistakes on demeaning and devaluing the free market, all they're doing is creating adding on additional hard feelings and burdens onto the crisis in the financial situation right now. Who's going to invest in the market? Where's the trust? Where's the stability? It's not happening right now. It isn't coming out of the 8th District. And I believe when I go to Washington, the one thing I will do, put the American people first, and I won't ask them to sacrifice before I decide to sacrifice myself. And Washington, where is the outcry for them to say, you know what, I'll cut my budget back 30% because we need to pay this back? I haven't heard that. Where is the watchdog for the taxpayers? That is what I will do when I go to Washington, and that is not what I've seen. And so as results matter, in 4 years, are we better off? And the answer is no. Let's just use some straight-out ratings from third-party people. Club for Growth, my opponent receives an 8% rating from Club for Growth on how she manages people's money. How about the Citizens Against Government Waste, a 30% rating. I don't know about you, but those aren't exactly ratings that stand up for saying, oh my goodness, I'm watching earmarking. I believe that we have had the exact same thing over and over again here. Growing government waste. You're on the very committee that is supposed to be overseeing and make sure that the people have a watchdog for their dollar. I'm sitting on financial services. Have you ever heard anyone in Washington say, let's build budgets based on need, not what was spent previously?